You are listening to Eagle's Nest Podcast with Drew Banky. Shocking accounts of UFOs, NDEs, Bigfoot, and angels are the vibe, but no telling where the conversation goes. The aim is we all get one step closer to the truth of our existence with each episode.
You are listening to KUNX Digital Broadcasting, Kansas City, Missouri, and Van Buren, Arkansas.
Welcome, everyone, to the Eagle's Nest Podcast. The date is May 8th of 2022. We're filming live from the UFO Superhighway of the San Luis Valley. And once again, my friends, it is very windy out here, so you may hear a little wind in the background. That's just part of the cost of living in the high desert in southern Colorado. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We have a special guest here, Geraldine. She's been featured in a documentary on Amazon Prime called Extraordinary the Seeding. If you haven't checked it out, check it out after the show. You don't want to miss this program. But if you checked it out, you know a little bit about her. She's a hypnotherapist. She's had a lot of experiences with UFOs, ETs. She had a lot of regression therapy, and now she's a regression therapist herself. And we're going to get into all that tonight. But before we do, just give you go through a little bit of house cleaning here. And I want to give it a shout out to River Moon Coffee. You can check them out over at rivermoonwellness.com. I'm going to throw that up here at the bottom. That's the website, rivermooncoffee.com. That's what gets me through all these interviews and the excitement as well. But to keep my mouth dry, I always drink River Moon Coffee. So check them out. You can go over to our website at Sacred Journeys Within and get the promo code to get 20% off your first order over at River Moon Coffee. Again, you go to Sacred Journeys Within. There's Sacred Journeys Within. There's our website. You can check out past shows, past interviews I've did on other shows, and past episodes of the Eagle's Nest podcast. This is the premiere for our broadcast on the Onyx network. So this broadcast will be broadcasted on the Onyx radio network. Thank you for all the new listeners that going to be coming over from the Onyx. This may be, I believe this episode's going to be delayed a week because of just being on the weekends, and it sort of be airing. This episode particularly be airing during my next week's episode, so it'd be delayed a bit for Onyx Radio, but you guys won't miss out. If you want to catch up, you can catch up the video over at Eagle's Nest Podcast YouTube channel or Onyx YouTube channel. Shout out to Race Hobbs, Margie K, everybody over at Onyx Network. Thanks for welcoming me with open arms. We got a heck of a list coming up, people. We just had Billy Carson on just a few days ago. You can check him out over at the Eagle's Nest Podcast YouTube channel. Coming up, we got Brett Lauder, Jess Rogie, Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio. We got Jason Quick coming up, Kevin Day, Ruben Langdon, just to name a few coming up. So we're booked out all the way into June, people, and starting to book into July already. And of course, we're going to have Laura Eisenhower coming back with us sometime soon. Can't wait to have her back on, and Grant Cameron. I'm trying to bring everyone the content, to not only talk about UFOs, but talk about the conscious aspect too of how this all ties in. Like I've said, if you followed any of my past interviews, the conscious aspect, I believe, is the big picture. The UFOs and all this other stuff is just small parts of it. Even the plant medicine and all that. But without further ado, so I got books available. Check them out over at Sacred Journeys Within. There's the website right here. You can check them out over at the shop page over at sacredjourneyswithin.com. You can buy autographed copies or buy them over on Amazon.com. The other book, Find Your Inner Guru, both of them are very deep in my heart. It didn't come from me. It come through me, but didn't come from me. These books are a work of art that me, Colleen Duran, my co-author, Dr. Colleen Duran, collaborated on this, both books. Check them out if you haven't, and check out the shop if support our work. Buy a t-shirt. My wife makes earrings. There's artwork over here that my wife channels. But help support this this cause, this show. I'm doing this to get the message out, and it does cost money. So anything you can do to help, and buying the book is only going to help you out too. So if you don't buy them from our website, go to Amazon.com. They'll always be up there. Also, there's a few bookstores. If you're in Southern Colorado, you can get them in person in Alamosa, Colorado at Narrow Gouge bookstore. Both of them are in there on stock on the shelf. So, and more to come on those. Always trying to promote them. And really, it's not about the money. It's about really getting the message across. But this podcast does cost money, people. So, as does everything. So, without further ado, I'd love to introduce my guest and my friend, Geraldine. Hey, Geraldine. Welcome to Eagle's Nest Podcast. How are you today?
Hi. So, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here, Drew. And I am just amazed at this incredible effort that you put and this work that you're doing. It's just really exciting. So thank you. Thank you for all you're doing.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking out the time. I know I know your life's getting busier and busier every day, just like we all are as we're stepping more and more into our roles as light workers or just human beings, So
Yes.
Not to complicate it too much, we're just trying to be better human beings. And I see that. And I'm just glad that we finally connected, and being on my show and you being the premiere for Eagle's Nest Podcast on KUNX. I just want to say thank you for joining me. And the part of the intro is the last part. The female voice is you. So thank you for contributing to my dream and my show and helping move this forward.
That's awesome, Drew. I want to thank you for having me. And it's such an honor to be your first show on your network. I mean, that's incredible. Kudos to you for the hard work you put in and for the space that you're holding and with the work that you do. And just happy to be here. So thank you.
Cool. So what's a day in the life of Geraldine look like? And I got to ask, how do you pronounce your last name? I wasn't even going to try because
It's Geraldine Orozco.
Orozco. Okay.
Not too hard.
Not too hard. I wasn't going to mess it up. So I just went with Geraldine.
Yes.
So what's a typical life in the life of Geraldine look like?
Well, it's really exciting, and it's a lot of very interesting things. But my primary focus is to try to embody and merge our higher consciousness, our higher self, into the physical. And this is what I do, holding space in my personal life, and also holding space for others that are looking to do the same. My background started as a pranic healer, quantum energy healer, and founder of Bay Area Meditation in San Francisco, California, where I taught meditation to companies around the Silicon Valley, all these major companies like Square, Facebook, Google. And what I noticed is that, we think that we are a small group of people that are trying to become spiritual and wake up and ask these incredible questions about reality and consciousness. But the truth is that there are so many people out there that are working diligently every single day to try to come into awareness and to practice and to embody some kind of a practice, a mindfulness practice. And over the past 10 years, I've seen how huge that mindfulness movement has been in the Silicon Valley and around the world. And now we see it going into different areas. We're going into psychology now. We're going into health, wellness, the physical body. So we're looking at things in a more holistic manner. And so this is my job. I decided to become a hypnotherapist as a result of my contact experience, conscious contact experience. And in order really to understand, what I really went through, I needed to understand the psychology behind that. I needed to understand, did I make it up? Is it some kind of hallucination? Did I have some psychosis? Or, how do we merge, how do we explain these conscious experiences or subconscious experiences and merge them with our everyday life? Why should we even do that? So that's where my work began, and I facilitate hypnotherapy for clients that have contact experience, and also healing and integrating fragments of their soul that are created through traumatic experiences in their lifetime. So this is my day is a balance between teaching meditation, doing hypnotherapy, and also something called DNA reprogramming. And then I have a lot of extra curricular programs and support groups, contact support groups that I host as well.
So there's your website scrolling across the bottom. I preloaded that
Oh,
for
very
you.
cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that's for her meditation. You can grab that off the video to learn more about her. Also in the description box for these videos on either channel, on either on X or Eagles Nest Podcast on the YouTube channel, you can find out more about that there. So what type of self-care? So all this work, obviously you have to keep the tuning fork in tune. So what do you do for self-care to keep yourself in balance?
So I tend to, what I've learned through my journey is, instead of compartmentalizing spiritual self-care, rather integrating it into our everyday life. And it really just becomes a state of being and a state of embodiment. So my daily routine begins with meditation. I meditate about 2 hours a day, or if I have more time, I do more. And I jump right into teaching meditation. And when I teach meditation, it's also an opportunity for me to dive into that realm as well and to maintain that frequency. And throughout my day, keeping a very mindful awareness of where my emotions are at, where my thoughts are at, where my intention is. Am I congruent with my actions? Am I congruent with the things that I'm doing, saying, and acting in the world? And are the things that I'm co-creating, which is very important for me, is the concept of co-creation. We are engines of co-creation. We are beings of manifestation. And so in order to understand the laws of those mechanics, we have to understand what it means to intend and to feel and to think. Through all our senses, we are creating inputs that go into the system that, are really propelling things into motion. And until we understand that, a lot of times our actions can be very unconscious, and we end up creating chaos and suffering for ourselves. So I really try to keep mindfulness throughout life in everything I do. And in my hypnotherapy sessions, they are really, really powerful because they not only does my client go into hypnosis, but I also go into hypnosis with them. And because of my ability to see the multidimensional body, I see a lot of what they're seeing. And so I have a wonderful opportunity to be able to dive into higher realms and explore information that would have not been necessarily available to me otherwise. So this is where, we have constant awareness, body inquiry of these things. And this is what my life is pretty much about. I about 5 years ago now, I completely sold my old business of being an event planner and just surrendered completely to this work and just allowed the universe to basically work through me as it needs to be. And so, that was one of the best things I did in my life. And I never thought about money. I never thought about survival. I never thought about fear or plans. Everything just went into motion. And I think that's what happens when we live in congruency with nature, when we live in alignment with nature. We are in harmony with ourselves and all things around us. And that's kind of a different way of being, so, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, I just have to get out of the way sometimes. This podcast, I realized once I started it, I was getting in the way of it for about 2 years. Because there was people telling me for my my wife always teases me. She's the one telling me ahead of time before, and then when I start hearing it from other people, then I put it together, and she gets irritated because I didn't listen to her. But it all happens, it all happens in divine timing too. So
Of
uh,
course. Yeah.
yeah, it's just amazing work. So amazing work that you're doing. So how does your work compare to like Dolores Cannon, or is it your own style of it, or is it based off of her work?
I know who Dolores Cannon is, but I don't know her work in depth. I think what she does is something called Q.H.T. I don't know the intricacies of that or what the details of how it is. My work is very much intuitive. I obviously am certified a clinical hypnotherapist, so I did go to school for that in traditional sense, and I learned clinical hypnotherapy in order to support the medical aspect as well. Because especially when you're merging a phenomena like contact, I really am very serious about trying to take it in a way that's a little bit more respectful and serious, because I think it's really important that we take contact a bit serious in a sense. Open space to have this communication between something that is so it's a phenomena that we can't quite explain, and bring it into our everyday lives, and that way be able to provide support for people that are going through these moments of uncertainty and confusion, because it can be quite confusing. So using many different modalities, mixing hypnotherapy, clinical hypnotherapy, as well as my vision, my intuitive ability, which is really the biggest tool that I use in my work. Because when I work with someone, I am merging with them. I merge with them, and I everything that they feel, I can feel. Everything that they think, I'm thinking and I'm seeing in images and in visions. And oftentimes I can see a lot more than what the person can see, unless they're completely developed. And that allows me to provide support in a very gentle, nurturing way to help guide them based on what their higher self says they want to do, always respecting the laws of free will and allowing them to choose to move forward in their evolution as needed. So hypnotherapy for me, I call it holographic hypnotherapy, because we are literally creating structures of reality and tuning into timelines when we're doing this work. We are simultaneous timelines. We are kind of like these giant orbs of energy that have spheres of potential timelines. And we, based on our frequency, we align with these spheres. We bring them into our space. We can create life experiences by tuning into them. And we can also shift and change things in our life. We can also tune into health, for example. If we're sick, we can tune into psychic abilities. We can connect with our past lives, which are not past lives. They're simultaneous timelines. And we can also connect with our future selves, which you can say are like interdimensional or ET beings, aspects of ourselves. So these are pretty complex realms that we do need to understand, because a lot of us, because of where we're at right now universally, the veil is thinning, and we are having more contact per se than ever before. More psychic phenomena is available to us now.
I definitely feel that. I definitely feel the sun in a different way. The weather, the weather is just affecting me more. And maybe it always has, the barometric pressure and all that stuff. But definitely, I'm more in tune to it now than what I have ever before. It just definitely seems really intense, especially the sun. So,
Yes.
how'd this all start with
Mm-hmm.
you? I know, but let's can we go back to the beginning and how what it looked like the day before Geraldine knew that there was ETs in this world. I'm gonna throw up everybody. I'm gonna throw up a link. It's gonna scroll across the bottom for a documentary on Amazon Prime. Geraldine's in. So, and it will accompany the story to give you a better sense of what's going on. Also, I opened up in the chat room to get some questions, and if we have time at the end, if you don't mind, maybe we could take some questions from the chat room.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that.
Cool, but that's way in the future. Let's
Yeah.
let's go to the past a little bit.
Okay, let's go to the past in this non-linear timeline that we're in. Okay, yeah. So how did I start? In 2008, my fiance at the time passed away, and passed away all of a sudden with a heart attack, essentially, very young. And I think that was kind of the catalyst. I was raised in a very spiritual family, meditating, very mindful, practicing, experiencing many different religions, cultures, and arts with my family. And that really, my parents always imposed in us the idea that we have to make our choices mindfully and we have to search for our answers. And so I think that was a wonderful foundation for me to question things, begin to question things. At the age of 5, I had my first contact. I had an incredible white light enter into my parents' bedroom where I was playing. And next thing I know, I have missing time. And from 7 to about 11 p.m. at night, I don't know what happened in between that time, and my parents don't remember either. But what happened is that I was taken on board a craft with these reptilian beings that were utilizing me to remote view something. So I had already been beginning some of the psychic abilities at that time. Also during school, I remember being taken out of school and tested with some kind of little ink blot things and intuition practices where they would show me something and I would have to intuit what was on that card. However, when I would try to ask some of my colleagues from that time, do they remember being taken out? Nobody remembers anything of the kind. Even my friend that was in that testing with me doesn't recall what happened. And they later entered into the military and became aware of some of these things at a later time. So that was the beginning, but I didn't link the two yet. And let me move forward to when I was 16 years old. I had this incredible missing time where I was walking down the street in South America. I lived in Bolivia for a couple of years. I was taken on board a craft, and I was inserted into my body when I was laying on top of something that looked like a medical dental chair. And into the body was inserted implants into the uterus. And also an insemination. And it was a mechanical insemination, which I didn't understand what was happening. I was quite innocent in a way, didn't really understand what it meant to become pregnant or inseminated at that time at the age of 16, believe it or not. But what happened essentially is that I became very sick as a result of that contact experience. And my uncle, who was a doctor, said it was probably just a stomach flu, something like that. What happened is that I became pregnant and then had a miscarriage. And the pregnancy at the age of 16, not being partnered or sexually active, was terminated within the first month. Then again, at the age of 21, 22, 24, I had these pregnancies when I was not partnered. And again, having to go to the doctor, becoming ill, having these strange medical side effects as a result of these very vivid dream experiences that I would see beings. I would have these experiences of insemination, whether they were mirror images or they were actually mechanically created. This would happen. In 2000, let's fast forward now, my partner passed away. I dive very deep into spiritual practice. I begin to meditate a lot, begin to question. I wasn't finding my answers outside. And I decided to just, dive in and practice everything that I had learned in meditation up until that point. And I was meditating up to about 9 hours a day. And that's when I started to get some breakthrough. I started to kind of deprogram my trauma, started to reintegrate fragments of myself. And in 2013, on a Friday in October, I was taken out of my bedroom window consciously at 3:33 in the morning on board a craft, and by these tall grays that, they removed this emotion out of my body. They removed my ability, my mobility, essentially, and they brought me into this craft. where they began to show me some very interesting information about the Pleiades, where they said I had been a part of a council there. I had been working, living there. I had been teaching to thousands of people there. And then they, went back into the craft and they showed me. So literally, they took me to the Pleiades, and I, was there, experienced what the Pleiades was like in the planet Maya. And when they brought me back into the craft, they showed me my hybrid children, and that was the most impactful, exchange with them. Because when the children became physical, they manifested from a hologram in front of me. The exchange with them was so powerful that I began to have memories of, bringing them to life, being pregnant, being on board craft, and the children and the fetus being removed from my body, nurturing them, holding them. And I couldn't understand how I could have forgotten such an important thing in my life. And it really caused like a shock. Like I didn't understand how I was living these two realities. And at that point, after I met 4 of these hybrids who are a mixture of humanoid and these interdimensional beings, they removed them and they showed me basically what the matrix was, the function, the structure of reality, down to the molecular level of nano atoms and how they move, how they function. And what I began to understand was that we're in a unified field of energy. It's not so much as a matter that we're living in. And for the first time in my life, I felt this incredible feeling of unity to all things in such a powerful way, and peace for the first time, because I realized that I was everything and everything was me. And there was no more confusion. There were no more questions at that point. It kind of came full circle. So when I was yes, exactly. So when I was brought back into my room at 6 in the morning, around 6:15 in the morning, I had like little pebbles on my feet from walking on top of the roof. Oh, go ahead.
Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
I've had experiences, but I have to play devil's advocate for my listeners.
Yes.
What you're saying sounds crazy. And that's not me saying it. I'm just saying. So explain like what So obviously this was very real for you. I've experienced I've experienced Osiris and things like that really made me question my sanity at the time. And then over time, it just become clear that I really was tapping into some type of Osiris's consciousness. So I understand it. One of the comments that's coming out of the chat room is about your mental health. How do you think your mental health, like going through all those traumas, do you think that? And I was through tons of traumas. I was adopted from birth. War in Iraq and divorce and all kinds of other stuff. A lot of traumas led up to my awakening. Why do you think that that's part of the process?
Well, yeah, that's a really important question. But in order to understand the answer to that, you need to understand what we are as humans. And this is kind of like my question throughout this entire journey since the beginning. I think that the death for me of my partner was a catalyst, because I didn't understand how, if we're doing and following the rules of society, doing everything that we're supposed to do, having the great education, having the career, the family, the picket fence, getting ready to get married, follow along this entire narrative that we think that we're supposed to follow, why don't things go the way that they're supposed to go, And at that point, this is where I began to question things. So for me, because I was raised in a very spiritual family, I had been meditating since a very early age, so I had been working and very aware of my emotions for a long time. And I think that if I didn't have the foundation, the strong spiritual foundation of meditation work and mindfulness in my life, I think that probably these experiences would have really caused a lot of trauma for me. But what happened was that I went from the inside out. I worked first with myself, my emotions, things that I had been experiencing through my life. And if you hear the story of my life, you're probably not going to think that I have any trauma at all. You're going to think you have a wonderful family. My parents are still together. We're very close. We still spend holidays together, whatnot. So it's not that I have that kind of a trauma, but trauma is anytime someone comes into a situation where they feel that they don't know how to respond to something that's occurring. We literally have like a filing cabinet that we pool data in order to respond to experiences. And if we've not experienced that before, that immediately creates a fragmentation in our subconscious mind. And so that fragmentation becomes a reference point for us that we're always going to be pulling from and repeating these kinds of traumatic experiences over and over again. So when I realized that the majority of the trauma in my life was just a constant choosing between fear and love. And I had been living my entire life responding to things that happened in my life based on repetitive patterns, programming, cyclical concepts that were coming down my family lineage. So when you deprogram those, you begin to understand who you are. You are not this personality. You are not this identity that you've created. You're not even your mother's daughter, father's, daughter. You're not this cultural expression that we've been designed to embody. We are actually this source, this energy, this life force. We are a fractal of infinite consciousness that is here to experience infinite potential. And so when you understand that, it begins to change the perspective of all of these very difficult, unknown, shocking, strange experiences that we tend to judge and categorize in certain ways. And I think that this is the power of a mindfulness practice. We begin to have a solid foundation in how we are perceiving things in a non-judgmental way. And this is the key for this topic, because, and for any topic really, for people that are going into personal development, our job here through experience is for us to begin to learn how to navigate the unknown from a place of neutrality, how to navigate relationships from a place of neutrality, how to navigate life in general from a place of neutrality. And that neutrality is where the human has the greatest power of creation, actually. This is where we begin to abide by laws of nature, like we were talking. So mental health for me was, always, it wasn't something that would come up, or I've never taken medications, I've never been on drugs, I don't even drink alcohol. I've had a very clean and healthy lifestyle, to which is necessary in order to hold this kind of space. And so when the topic of ETs came in, I think the reason why it took me to that next level of experiencing conscious contact is because I had been questioning all of society. When I began to follow these patterns of emotional cycles in my family lineage, it took me down to questioning culture, religion, society, all the way back to ancestors, centuries and centuries of ancestors that had been repeating same karmic cyclical patterns, and the reason behind that, right? And the institutions and society and the structures of reality that help produce these kinds of structures of belief systems. And if you follow those back, you go back to the very beginning of time as we know it, let's say the origin in Mesopotamia, where we are descendants of this creation. My question after my contact experience is, who are we? If we are being hybridized, if we are participating in a hybridization program, what makes us so valuable? What is the soul? And that's where my questions led me to have such conscious experience in 2013 and allowed me to dive even deeper after that in the coming years.
Fascinating. And that's in the a lot of that's explained in the Seeding documentary.
A little bit, yes, a little bit. We do touch on it a little bit. It's a well-made documentary, but of course, this is a very complex topic. There's so many angles that you need to understand to really understand what it means, because people will start questioning free will, and they will start questioning, how do you have the right to take someone and hybridize them. And so these are things that, we're learning. We're learning as a society. We're learning as a humanity what it means to participate in this co-creation.
Do you think this is a new, well, obviously I don't believe the human race is different than ET. I think we're all just a big family of sort. Do you think that there's always been beings on Earth here? Do you think, or this is a new influx? Or what's going on right now? Like, there's, is this a pure consciousness thing, or is this, or is this actual physical beings? Like, what exactly is this phenomenon? Like, what's your definition of it?
Yeah, I mean, I can share with you my.
That's a loaded question. I'm sorry.
It's such a load. There's so much. We could sit here for hours. But yeah, no, but it is an important question because, we need to understand that. But from my perspective, I really like to take a little bit of a broader step back when we look at some of these things so that we can have an overview of what we're talking about. My question was, what is the human, what is the soul? And what my answer so far, and with these ever evolving concepts, of course, that we are fractals of infinite consciousness. And so what does that mean? It means that how source, infinite consciousness, fractalizes as it expresses itself through different dimensional planes can manifest into different forms, different containers. We are one of those versions of a container, of a fractal of infinite consciousness. And within this container is fractalized other aspects of ourselves. Essentially, we are one with everything. As you just said, I have the exact same perspective. We are one. There is no separation between ourselves, our neighbors, our families, this world, humans on it, all planets, the galaxies as we see it through our filter. But we do have to remember that we are living in a kind of a hologram. It's a hologram simulation that we are collectively co-creating. So is there a reality? Not really. We are just co-creating a holographic experience for one another. And that means that anything is possible, number one. Number two, it means that our constructs, the concepts of what we think is reality, have to be a little more fluid. We see the universe as planets, stars, and these round balls that have certain energy and movement, and we create laws of physics in order to explain how those function. But when you start dealing with interdimensional phenomena, you're moving outside of those laws of physics and creation. We're moving outside of that. We're going into a quantum field now of creation. And that means that we have to be prepared to understand what manifestation of consciousness and this infinite source may manifest into on that dimensional plane. So within, and this is where I start going into the genetics of these things, because this infinite consciousness, in order to embody into the this vessel, has a physical expression. And that physical expression is the genetic code, which is the data bank of information. Within our DNA, can you imagine, in 1 tablespoon of DNA, we can hold the entire world's history. Okay, so how much do we have in our body, and what are we holding? If only 1 tablespoon holds the entire world history, including our life, including everything that we are. So within dark DNA, which is only 2 to 3% of DNA, is what writes the code that writes this physical vessel. That's it. What's the rest of that code doing? The rest of that code is functioning the instruction manual for the hologram. Our physical bodies are more than the physical. We are multidimensional expressions, multidimensional beings. And within that multidimensionality, we have access to our past lives, which are simultaneous lives. We have access to these beings that we meet in these dimensional planes. When we leave the body, when we are in dream time, we are actually accessing different dimensional planes, and we won't remember because the physical vessel hasn't raised its vibrational frequency to be able to hold that information within the body. And it isn't until people start to wake up that they begin to have access to memories, to contact experience, conscious contact like myself. So what I proved in my work and what I'm seeing over and over again with the hundreds of contactees that I speak to is that there is a very profound connection between contact and spirituality and consciousness that we need to understand. And this is where we start moving away from the physical construct of things into something a little bit more challenging, where we are multidimensional. Our mind has to be able to go into that realm. So these beings are ourselves, essentially, in other dimensional planes that we are meeting. And we meet, and we need to train ourselves to meet all of our aspects of ourselves in the physical and in this interdimensional planes.
It can be pretty scary. I'm glad that, and one of the biggest reasons I share my story is because, it took me a while to grasp it, and I believe sharing your story allows others to come forward. There may be some that really resonate with your story, and then now they're able to start sharing with friends and family, and eventually, maybe even write a book about it, sharing their stories and processing it. And I believe that's a big part of it. But I love like where your mind is, like with source and how you look at things. Yes, we are in a hologram. All this is, there is no really nuts and bolts anything, but it's an infinite hologram that goes to infinite space. Just think of your imagination. Wherever your imagination can go, that's how far the universe can expand, and ultimately you're the dictator of that. So it's just a quandrum that people are really hard to wrap their head around, because they can pick up a mug, or they can pick up a lighter or a phone, and it's a solid thing. But to really grasp it, you have to experience it. The knowledge is one thing, but the experience of it, and that's where I think this whole storyline, the whole UFO consciousness thing, is shifting from researchers and people talking and describing. That their time was valued, but really, if you want to get to it, you have to talk to people that actually experience and actually talk to whether it be real or not, it's ingrained in their memory like a real experience. I've seen Bigfoot face to face, and I've seen ET face to face, and my biggest thing I got from both those experiences was a dream followed up a week or two later, where I had the same experience from the other viewpoint, and then I experienced multidimensionality and really, really viewed it from a firsthand, thing. So I get it. It's hard to understand it when someone's talking about it, and maybe the chat room is going crazy. People are loving the conversation, and maybe hopefully your story is triggering at least one person to process further, along. What can you tell me about your work? Like, what is, without providing any details, like getting into anybody's private life, what's some of the craziest stories? Like, what have you come about?
Oh, I mean, I experience things that continue to expand my mind every single day, so for
I
me,
feel that.
for me as a hypnotherapist, it's almost like it's really beautiful, because it's a constant practice of being in flow. And your nervous system has to be well trained to be able to deal with just constant things. But even though that's the case, I think the most phenomenal thing about my work, what I've discovered, is that every single person has a puzzle piece, but it's a perfectly fitting puzzle piece to some kind of collective image that we have. And this is the most incredible part of the work, because I'm meeting with contactees from around the world, that have even been on same craft, for example. They've been in the same experience. How they come to me, how we connect, this is all an example of the laws of resonance and how we tend to unite and attract people, places, and things that are in alignment with us. I feel that those that are healers, that are working, we hold powerful energetic space where those that need to work with us find us in order to carry out whatever needs to be carried out. So, for example, I have these 2 sets of twins from different parts of the world, one in Australia and the other one in France. And met them completely different years. One of them I met 3 years ago, one of them I met 2 years ago. And when I had sessions with the 4, because the 4 of them had similar contact experience, they were referencing this image. And I have in my support groups, I have these workshops where I have people draw what they see, what they have seen, what they have experienced, and share it with the group. And this is when we have incredible discovery, because people are sharing very similar contact experiences. Everything from the kind of technology that they're encountering, to the procedures that they're experiencing, to the inquiries and the interest that they are experiencing from these beings, to the way that they feel and are experiencing the contact themselves. So these 2 people showed their drawings at different times. And when I saw the drawings and it looked like this other set of twins that was from Australia, I couldn't believe it. So I put them together, and I was shocked, because even the craft that was being shown was similar to the one that the other couple of twins had seen. So I asked them if they were interested in discussing potentially talking together, and we did. And it turns out that they completely recognized one another. They remembered one another for being on board craft together. Okay, so to me, this is the kind of thing that, it really breaks this concept that we're dealing with some kind of psychosis in a way that cannot be explained. Whether we are dealing and traveling to alternate planes, this is something that it's embedded, encoded into our memory. It's embedded into the memory of our physical bodies. These 2 twins recognize each other. They remember connecting with one another, being tested the same ways. And it brought a lot of healing for them, because they both thought that they were crazy, because the experience was so incredibly vivid. Okay. So that's one example, which I think is the most incredible. I've also met people that I've seen on board craft, and learned more about my own contact experience through that. I've had people that channel information, incredibly advanced physics, mathematics of astrophysics of the universe in their sessions. These are people that are working everyday lives, from students to people that are working in, an office, Wall Street, are coming and having these kinds of incredible life-changing experiences in hypnotherapy, and also DNA reprogramming. So it is really just mind-blowing. And again, as you mentioned, the sky really is the limit when you talk about this. But I think what we're learning is what the mind is. When we enter different states, of mind, of consciousness, we have access to different dimensional planes. And the body is adjusting. It adjusts frequency in order to enter into these planes. Just like I was taken in the physical consciously, my entire body had to change its frequency down to the cellular structure in order to enter into this interdimensional space. And as a result of that, my psychic abilities were a product. And this is another thing that I see a lot in my groups. These people are having incredible activations of psychic abilities from one day to the next. They're spontaneous healings. We have our good friend Preston Dennett, who talks about the incredible healings that are occurring as a result of contact experience. From the other side of the spectrum, I'll just briefly touch on some of the negative sides of it, which is something that has to do with the construct of our reality. I think when people are waking up, they are emitting a vibrational frequency that is so profound. And there is an interest from, let's say, the opposing darkness, because now you are affecting matter. Now you are beginning, people that are cultivating psychic abilities and mastery over their physical matter are able to transcend physical limitations. They are now coming into creator God type beings. And with that comes a responsibility. The dark side is quite interested in that. They want to see who is activating that and what they're going to do with that. So a lot of interest goes into that from the military. People that are awakening have a lot of military activity. That's also happened to me. Taken into underground bases. There's many cloning programs. There's many MyLab, military abductions that occur to people that are already quite connected. So there's many facets of this, and there's so many and so complex and intricate that it's really hard to just brush it under a rug and say that it's not happening, because it's happening to people around the world, and they're reporting similar things in a way that is not copying or making it up, but in a way that is fitting the next piece to a bigger image of what we're experiencing here collectively.
Yeah, so you would say we're particles having experiences for basically brain particles of one big brain. That's kind of what's going on, is the way I see it. Yeah, just so amazing. Let me see. Oh, want to take this time to wish you happy Mother's Day. And also my wife Ella is in the chat room. Want to take a minute to honor her, just bringing this beautiful miracle of Hawk into our lives that come on 1/11. January 11th this year. Comes super early, like most everybody knows. But just want to honor my wife today for being that portal for that being to come through into this existence. And he's just such a blessing, and she is as well. So just want to honor all the mothers out there. Honor my mom, Lynn. Banky passed away, and my biological mother, Karen. My mother-in-law, Sheila, and all the other mothers out there. The mother of my first kid, even though we don't get along, Kimberly, want to just cross the line and just send a little bit of unconditional love to her, and want to honor her for everything that she's done as well. But all the mothers out there, we don't honor them enough, and at the end of the day, we'd be extinct without them. So yeah, just thank everyone. Thank all the mothers out there for doing the work, especially my wife.
Mm-hmm. Happy Mother's Day.
And to Mother Gaia. One thing that people need to realize, it would change a lot of things if they would just realize this big ball of dirt that we're on actually has a chakra system, has a heartbeat, has an energy just like us. Her blood and her body may not look like ours, but she is a being just like we are. And man, that would change a whole lot of things if we could just realize that. So happy Mother's Day to Mother Gaia as well.
Absolutely beautiful.
So how many ET races are there? How many ET races do you know of that have you experienced firsthand?
Well, I've experienced many different kinds. How many are there? I think there are infinite manifestations of beings, but I do think that the way that I look at it more is frequency. I think that there are ranges of frequency, of expressions of consciousness that we have access to more than other, depending on where you're at in your range of seeing. Just like we humans can only see a certain range of color, but there are, infinite spectrum of color. We align with different frequencies based on our frequency. I think that there are 13 main, the way that life force fragments in this dimensional, three-dimensional plane is 13 dimensional levels of consciousness that go from the lowest to the highest. And I think that within those 13 ranges are different manifestations of different species. It doesn't mean that, because remember that we are a cocktail of DNA, because within our body, within our genetics is many different species that we have combined And when I say species, really what I would like to call them is basically data of information, because when this data is combined, it creates who we are. This one fragment of your many fragments that you have. So we are experiencing life, and how when we have contact experience, whatever contact we remember is an expression of the data that we have within our genetics. So if you are having more experiences with reptilian draconian, one, it's in your DNA, it's in your genetics, and two, it's at the level of vibrational frequency that you're at that moment. If you're having experience with Arcturians, all these beings that we call them Arcturians, but I don't think it's the Arcturians. I think it's a vibrational frequency that the Arcturians hold, because I've been a part of many councils, I've seen many councils, and they are a combination of many different races that make up that. And what they have in common is that they sustain a frequency, and they tend to manage certain bloodlines that they are connected to, families, individuals that they work with, or have been working with all their lives. So it's a bit complex, but I think that as we wake up and activate our own DNA, which means that the more we reintegrate fragments of ourselves, we are expanding into these dimensional planes and have access to that information, so that when we have contact, we are seeing more and more vividly.
So this brings up a question. When with your understanding of the 13 dimensional fields, when do we lose form? At what dimensional field do we lose form?
Already, well, you see, form becomes more fluid is what happens. Why does that happen? Because the way that, let's say, light or this source bends, depending on the structure of the platonic solids that make up an organism, this is how light will bend in order to create an organism. The more fractals that are created by that bending of light, the more fluid the organism will be. It'll be able to shift and move and change, shape shift, and eventually, when we're reaching these 13-dimensional plane, you're already coming into light beings, angelic beings, orb type things. And this is why people experience orbs. They just see a light, but that light can manifest into a physical projection. However, remember that when we dream, our dream time is actually the most important time, where we are incredibly active and where we need to really become conscious. Just as much as we're training to become conscious in the waking state, we must become conscious in dream time, because this is where we start going into the very tricky laws of free will. If you are sleeping your consciousness is sleeping in dream time, anything can happen to you. You can become a host for all kinds of things. You can engage with darker entities. You can be taken. You can make agreements with people, places, and things that you don't want to make agreements with, and then experience things that have become traumatic in your life that bleed into the physical. So this is what humans have been training for centuries, since the beginning of time. If we go back to Egypt, if we go back to all these major ancient cultures in history, they revered death and dream time as one of the most important passages, the vortex of detaching from the physical body and going into this interdimensional realm where so much is taking place, the real information that affects this physical hologram. So this is where we need to begin to train in navigating that. And that's where we don't have a body. Where in a sense we are formless. However, I want to add that all the activity that we have in dream time is being written in our genetic code. All of that is being expressed from the genetic code based on our simultaneous history, and we're also writing that genetic code, and it makes up timelines that we are going to be experiencing in the future as we have.
So can we a lot of things I prescribe to people, obviously I work with ayahuasca and other medicines like this, but not everybody's called to medicines like that. So I have a lot of questions like, or people preparing for ceremony beforehand are telling them to use binaural beats at night. They can affect their body. It's kind of like a cheat. You don't have to. You're just sleeping and you're not doing anything mindfully, but your genetic code and everything, your container of water, like Dr. Emoto pointed out, is being affected by that vibration. So that's I'm totally about the dream time. I've had more visions and more messages come from dream time than I ever had from any
Mhm.
ceremony. The most
Yep.
profound ones, and when they connect to your physical life, or when they're validated through experiences in your physical life. Like I uh, I channeled Osiris like is about 4 years ago spontaneously, and I recorded it. And I just recently read the Emerald Tablets, and so many synchronicities, just validated that channeling from Osiris even more for me through the Emerald Tablets. It's just so that gift, comes 4 years later. It just comes around when it needs to, and just reminds you that yeah, that was a real thing. But when the experience happened, it's very real, but it's very easy to forget. Go back into the matrix and forget and
Yep.
those lessons. What can we do to remind ourselves? Like, I'm sure a lot of listeners, if you're listening to this podcast, whether it be on KUNX or Eagles Nest podcast or on the radio or anywhere, any of the other avenues that's streaming across the world right now, if you're listening to this, I'm sure that you've had experiences. And the question is, how do we remain like in that vibration? How do we remain in that balance?
Mhm. Well, for me, I have learned through personal experience and through observation of people in humanity that without a meditation practice and the cultivation of your mind, you really will not be able to go anywhere because the hologram is very seductive. The hologram is very convincing that it's real. And in order to break the program that this is real, we have to do some work. We have heavy indoctrination. We have compartmentalized reality. Everything in our world is designed from the inside out because it understands how you function before you even know how you function. So just knowing that right there is a big wake-up call. If your entire world around you is designed to keep you in hypnosis, designed to keep you in survival, designed to keep you disconnected from yourself and your truth and your emotions, obviously you're going to live an entire life where you're going to think that cause and effect, ups and downs, and suffering is an actual way of existence. When we look at nature, we can see a balance. Nature functions in intuitive flow. It is harmony. Even when there's death, it's a harmonized death. All things are in agreement with that death because they contribute to growth. So we need to merge with nature. How do we merge with nature? Silence the mind that believes that the hologram is real. Connect with nature, earth, ground with nature in order to become aligned with the natural rhythms of creation. And this is not just an abstract thought. Your entire cells of your body begin to program and express themselves in a way that's more powerful. It's balanced. And so meditation, in a sense, is the doorway to the empowerment of the human and also leading into the ability to manifest, to create, to heal, all of those things.
I, I I love the synchronicities. I was just talking to my stepdaughter this morning about going out in nature, just going for a walk, because it's a natural medicine. It's
Yeah.
even without any plant medicine involved, you can just walk out in nature, and it's gonna bring you into balance. There's a natural occurrence. I love the explanation that you put on it.
Thank you.
Um, so what getting to your work, I'm jumping around a little bit, still trying to figure out this host thing, but what the physical signs of trauma? Like, I in my work, I It's something that's just come about in my process where I can start to see physical things and how they connect to traumas, whether it be in this lifetime or another. Like, can you touch on that? Does that come up in your work
Absolutely.
at all? Or
Absolutely.
what about
That is my work. Absolutely.
or tattoos? Like tattoos, all of it.
Yeah.
It's all a message, you know.
Everything has meaning, and some people hear that and they're like, mm-hmm, sure, but actually everything has meaning, you know. And with the more silent and the more still we get, the more we realize how our environment is just not only communicating to us, but we are speaking through our environment to ourselves. You know, and it's very interesting. But yes, everything from tattoos to scars on the body to markings to okay, how do we identify trauma? Well, there are certain patterns that a human will embody when they are heavily traumatized. One thing is that our nervous system is completely distorted. And if you notice your body, your muscles in the body are tense at all times, it means that you're in a constant state of survival. And this is something that many people, sometimes they go towards things in order to escape the tension that is built in the body. They will either go towards drugs or alcohol or things or even activities that help them completely deviate from feeling things in their body. Feelings and emotions are the most important things that we need to learn in this lifetime, because emotions are the key to mastery. They are the key to understanding yourself and the world outside of you. If you don't know your emotions, if you haven't even felt and identified and can identify when you're feeling an emotion and what you're feeling, you can be very easily manipulated, you can be very easily hurt, you can be very easily lost, you can be confused. So my first advice is to sit with every single emotion in the spectrum and get to know it. Observe how your body responds to that emotion, what muscles tense up when you say, let's say, fear, or when you say anxiety or insecurity or something, any word. Notice how your body responds and what tenses up. A lot of people don't even realize that they're tense in their stomach, and it isn't until you sit in meditation that you're like, oh my God, it's like the muscles keep releasing, because you've been in such survival mode that there's a tremendous disconnect. When we have this muscle tension and suspension in the nervous system, many things happen. First of all, through the body we have meridian lines, which are energy runways through the body. They cannot flow, they become stuck. So let's say you're in constant state of fear or anger, your tummy is super tight, your liver is intoxicated because it's not processing properly, and life force can't come in. So your source and your ability to tune into the higher levels of your body, your heart, your throat, your third eye, which are your intuitive and your ability to become coherent with your environment, is blocked, so you won't have the intuitive ability. You probably won't trust. You'll be in a state of fear. You'll be disconnected. You doubt yourself. All of these are direct results of these very, very simple concepts in the physical body. So when you start releasing these heavy emotions that you're holding on to, that you're not even aware of, you begin to run more life force through the body. When you go into nature, nature flushes you out for you. The longer you stay in nature, the more you align with the natural movements and energy begins to move again. But when we're in this, iron jungles and in the buildings, we have to do an extra effort to move life force through the body. The second part of that is to drink a lot of water and to sleep appropriate amounts of time, because we're in a constant state of survival, our nervous system is shot, and the hormonal system, because of the kind of food that we're eating, because the food that we're eating is incredibly, basically becoming like fake. It's like fake food. It's genetically modified. It's not rich with nutrients that will nourish the body. We have to take an extra step to eat mindfully and to nourish the body consciously with our mind more than what we're even putting into the body. So all of that is really essential. And the last part of the tips that I would give for that would be the mindfulness practice. As soon as something triggers, I think are the gold. of our human experience. When triggers come up, this is such a powerful opportunity for change. If in just 1 week you would sit with the triggers that come up, just 1 week in your life, I assure you, you will open up so much. You will transform, you will change, and you will break patterns that you've been living and repeating for your family lineage for centuries. So this is where we're building a new human. It's a new way of living. We are becoming compassionate with ourselves, and the embodiment of self-love. Self-love is not an emotion, it's not an idea, it's not pampering and going to the spa or going to retreats. Self-love is a state of being, state of awareness, and it's a complete truth, being in complete truth without fear.
Nice.
This is kind of the way of living in a mindful way.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's amazing. That I love where your mind's at. I love where your vibration's at. It's so great to see so many people finding their aspect of source, And we're going to get more into this story. We're going to take a quick break, give a station identification, which you're a part of. So thank you so much. Shout out to Race House, Margie K over at KUNX. This is the first episode. This is episode 6 of Eagle's Nest podcast with Geraldine. And this is the first episode on KUNX network. So give a minute for station identification. Be back in 30 seconds.
You are listening to Eagle's Nest podcast with Drew Banky. Shocking accounts of UFOs, NDEs, Bigfoot, and angels are the vibe, but no telling where the conversation goes. The aim is we all get one step closer to the truth of our existence with each episode.
You are listening to KUNX Digital Broadcasting, Kansas City, Missouri, and Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, and we're back. Some people say Arkansas, some people say Arkansas. It's whatever works.
Oh boy, did I mess that up? That's so funny.
It's all right.
Okay.
Race is probably cringing if he's listening right now. Race.
Oh no!
If you're in the chat room, yeah, I'm gonna leave it like that. But yeah, that's where Race is at. So yeah.
I thought it was Arkansas, but I looked it up and I read it, and it said Arkansas, so I said Arkansas.
It looks like it. It's all good. It's
okay.
It's wonderful. It's perfect just the way it is. I've come to learn to let divine nature be what it is. Sometimes it'll surprise you how it's supposed to be right now. So I just trust everything.
We can redo it.
I think I might leave it. It's a conversation piece.
All right.
It's all good. But I'm so honored to have you, in my introduction.
Thank you.
This has been a wild ride. This podcast, and yeah, just take a minute to talk about KUNX. Thanks Margie K for seeing the light in my program and seeing what I really want to do, and it's been growing exponentially so fast. And when you're in the stream of the universe and you hop in the canoe, sometimes you just let the canoe take you where it's supposed to go, and you don't even steer it. And I feel like I'm these past couple month or so, this all starting, it just feels like I'm not even steering it. It just happened, and it's just a blessing. So how long from your experiences did it take for you to start dissecting them? How long did you sit with it before you really started to be like, okay, this is something really happening now. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. It took me 5 years since that conscious experience in 2013, because I just met a partner at that time. And my business was doing really, really great finally. I was on a roll, and the problem was that I was living a double life, and it was just impossible because every time I would do a wedding or an event, I mean, we're talking about very high-end luxury $1 million events. To me, it seemed so empty and meaningless. And it was just like heavy on my soul. And it was getting harder and harder to get up every day, to do this work. In addition to that, my partnership was really, really wonderful, but there was a thing where they wanted to settle down, they wanted to have family, white picket fence, all these things, and I thought I really need to find some answers about this, and I would like to talk about it. And they said, no, don't even think about talking about it because you're going to look like a crazy person, obviously. And my family thought the same thing, So I told 3 people: my parents, my mom, my dad, and my partner at the time. That's it. Nobody else in the entire world knew. And it wasn't until 2017 that I made the decision by many reasons. I was meditating a lot again. And I found Alba Weinman, who did my hypnotherapy, who's phenomenal. And it was through the hypnotherapy and Alba Weinman where things became very clear. And I asked about my contact experience, and we went really deep. And I began to channel massive amounts of information about the beginning of time, races here on Earth, how DNA merged together, the preservation of certain bloodlines through history that created that 1% that is now basically, in charge of everything in our reality, that creates the construct of our reality. And genetically modifying humans for centuries and centuries as we are. So the hybridization program is not just a couple people sprinkled around the world. We're talking about the entire human race potentially participating in the hybridization program because we are descendants of genetically modified lineages in this construct that we're experiencing. And that took me even deeper to getting more hypnotherapies. And I had several sessions. They're all public. You can see them on my website because the information is quite interesting. I never studied or read. I never heard the name Anunnaki before. I never heard the book of Enki, any of these things, these concepts, until I had my hypnotherapy and I was barely speaking these words. So I had to, at that point, I went through several existential crises myself because of the amount of information that I had channeled. And I had to educate myself on what I was talking about myself. I could see everything, but unless I compare it with what this world is seeing, you're just making stuff up. And I realized that there's an entire fields of study, around these topics. And that's where I started to and it was very difficult. It was very difficult process to integrate this kind of level of receiving knowledge like you did, Drew. In your experience where you saw the Emerald Tablets later, that exact thing happened to me. And you know how mind-blowing it is to read something that you've seen in an ancient text. It's so confirming. It is just, it's mind-blowing.
It's very, for me personally, I definitely, and I'm sure a lot of listeners can relate. It made me question my own sanity, and then, having this message, I need to share this information. It's like, how do you share the information? I don't know how to even comprehend it, let alone articulate it. So I had to ask for that. I had to, this whole process forced me in this, habit of praying, and speaking it's like to a being on another side of a curtain I can't see most of the time, but I know they're there, and I have to trust when I ask the question, ask to help, and eventually over time it has showed me how to myself has showed me how to articulate this information. And I think a lot of us are on this path, or we're either at this point where you're at, able to articulate and help others understand their own visions. And I think we're all, on this different points of this path. I think important point to point out is there's no hierarchy in any of this. We're all and I don't claim any hierarchy. I have some truths that I know that are helpful, and I want to share them, So So I hear some connection to Egypt. What's your connection to Egypt? And follow Follow-up question: why is Egypt the pivot point of the spiritual awakening humanity is going through at this time?
Those are so amazing questions. First of all, my history with Egypt is very long. I am a very old soul, you can say. I have many, many lifetimes in this planet, in this construct, I guess. Gone through many generations and resets of society to the point where, when you think of Egypt, it's more of a frequency of an existence rather than a location, I would say, almost. But it seems that in this construct and the way that we see reality, the location of this frequency is in Mesopotamia, what we know as Mesopotamia. This was the origin, the seeding of life on this planet in this timeline. There are many other cycles of life that we are living through and tuning into simultaneously, like Lemuria, for example, like all of these different ancient civilizations, from the Mayans to the Aztecs to the Hindustans, to all of these different civilizations are generations of frequency that existed are coexisting. So when we come across some information, all we're doing is we are looking at our holographic DNA, we're tuning into that data, and we're bringing it into the present. Collectively, we have been genetically modified. These holograms that participate on the earth have been genetically modified in order to sustain and have access to certain data. So Egypt is, I guess, in this current timeline, because of the vibrational location that it's in, it's a vortex. It's like a portal of energy for the beings that were encoded and imprinted with information in this generation. But when I say that, it's like it's not finite. Like when I see it, there's like so many layers of generations that have gone throughout the world, and other points around the world of starting points that are not in Egypt. There are other points, like there's a starting point in India, there's a starting point in Russia, there's a starting point so all around the world there have been beginning points of civilizations which have participated in this collective timeline. Your second question, what was your second question, Drew?
What was your connection to Egypt, and why is Egypt the pivot point of humanity's consciousness evolution?
Okay, so my personal connection to Egypt, everything from several of these royal bloodlines in Egypt to being a servant, to being a scribe, to being at the time. Now, during my hypnotherapy, I had been working with Nefertiti I was an interdimensional being that was working with the earth magic and earth alchemy, and I was assisting in the cultivation of a soul in the physical body. We were learning how to keep this soul in the physical construct, and we were designing the physical body in order to sustain the human soul. I guess it was later there was a merging with the Jesus Christ bloodline, where this consciousness of Jesus comes into this timeline that then helps us understand that the body is not just limited to the physical; it has to be a multidimensional expression. And I think that's when there was a turning point for humanity and the design of humanity. So that was my participation many times in Egypt, but that's the one that came up in the hypnotherapy and helped me understand many things, like how our DNA functions and how bloodlines were preserved from that moment of that Christ consciousness, which is not a religion. We're not talking about the Jesus Christ figure. We're talking about a consciousness, which is a crystalline life force energy that was merging with the physical, and how that happens. It was preserved bloodlines because when you combine DNA within family bloodlines, it strengthens the information of those bloodlines, but it deteriorates the physical. That's why we have so many of these, families that have been breeding within one another. They end up with diseases and problems, but the bloodline is already concentrated and heavily embedded with data. And that data then breaks off to create generations and generations of humans that spread that information as our human race expands. So every single country, every culture, every physical trait is the product of the genetic modification of different species or vibrational frequencies that are designed to hold different crystalline source energy in the body. And the physical traits contribute to the specific journey that this soul is going to carry out as a part of a whole. So that's kind of what my work with Egypt.
Awesome. Yeah, the crystalline, that's one of my channelings there in my first book. When all this ancient stuff really coming up, I channeled keep in mind the crystalline existence in the core of your being, and then I eventually moved more and explain. I eventually asked what that meant, and it showed me the carbon coming out of our bodies, and we're actually changing. That's why people don't really realize, like, our physical bodies are changing right now, and it's through our consciousness that's changing it. I love Gil put up in. I just posted his comment on the comment.
Mahib, awesome.
On the section, I love how he puts that. Quite simply, I see Egypt as a point in humanity's history where we reached a high level of consciousness, and I believe that's why we're seeing it come through in our visions first, and now we're starting to actually come into that in the physical. And I think me, you, and Gil's all on the same wavelength, describing it slightly different ways, but that's the way I see it. Just so the listeners can hear it 3 different ways. But yeah, thanks, Gil, for that comment. In the comment section, both on both the YouTube channels has been just going off the chain. I open it up for questions. If you got any questions for Geraldine, put them in the comment section. We're approaching our last quarter of the show. We're approaching 30 minutes left in it. So yeah, if you have any questions for Geraldine, now is the time about her work, or anything that you got coming up. We're shifted over to her and see how it goes. But right now, we're going to keep going into it. I was speaking to Billy Carson just a few days ago, and we were speaking about we're brainstorming about a theory. I even forgot I was doing a podcast. I was talking to Billy, and we were sitting there brainstorming about stuff. We're talking about the connection between a theory that Osiris has reincarnated as thought, that's pretty as Hermes. But we also think that he may be incarnated as Jesus Christ, as Buddha, and a lot of different stages, and he may be even incarnated in one or more physical forms at this very moment. What's your thoughts on that?
I love this concept. I have also dove into this concept myself when I came across this as well. But here's how I see it, because again, we always want to see things from the construct of our human mind, where there's a linear timeline. Now, we are fractals of one another. We have to remember that, and if we remember that in this context, we all have fractals of these bloodlines within us, even us, even me and you. This is how you have access to that information, because it's in your code. So when we have that genetic data in the body, it's a vortex portal through the physical that allows us to tune in to this timeline, to this information. And so what I think is that the consciousness, it's a signature, it's a vibrational signature, has been manifested into the form of all these things, but I think it's in all of us. I think, Thoth, I think Osiris, I do think that there's a very strong connection, but it's a vibrational frequency. It's a larger band of frequency.
Yes,
And when,
there's nothing genetic about it. Like,
yeah,
there's, if you're caught in the 3D, you could say that, okay, there's a particle of the water that made up each one of these incarnations that found its way to my mother before I incarnated, and that's how the genetic code come. If we travel past the third dimension, we understand, there's no genetic code. This is a consciousness genetic code.
yes.
And that's why it can be inhabited by more than one manifestation at the same time.
Exactly, exactly. And so I see it like that. I see it that they're fragments, you can say, of one another, and we have access to those. It's in us.
Got it. Man, I love my show. I love that we get way. I love we get to the nitty gritty of everything.
Yeah.
Another thing I spoke to Billy about, and I want to get your thoughts on. I was able to see in vision. Obviously, I've never been off the planet in this manifestation in a crap by Elon Musk or NASA or anything like that. I'm wearing NASA pants right now. I'm like sweatpants, but I haven't ever been in a ship, but I've had a vision where I've been able to see the Earth from outside, from other planets, from other spaces, and see I was able to see a much larger picture because I was seeing the Earth not as an inhabitant on it, but from an outside view. So I got to see the construction of our solar system. And I got to see the Earth as the representation of the heart chakra, of the chakra. I saw all the planets as a chakra line, and then I started seeing how each one of them correlated with the chakra that they correlated with, and then the sun being the representation of source. So my theory is that there's no linear timeline. I totally agree on that, but the creation is through consciousness, and it starts and stops on Earth. I believe the whole, like, okay, Earth is a young planet or whatever. I think they're aging it on outdated scale. I think that when you look at it from a consciousness viewpoint, you can really see Earth as the beginning and ending of everything. I believe everything is manifested from our consciousness here on Earth.
Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, I completely have seen the same thing about each planet being connected to the chakra system and the sun as source. Same thing, absolutely. I think because it's a fractal design. It's like this little nucleus, that's a fractal design of everything that is within this 13-dimensional construct. But 13 planets, 13 frequencies, 13 chakras in the body. But there are more than that, of course. There are infinite chakras, right, that we have available to us. That being said, I'm not sure I understand the idea that everything begins and ends in the Earth, because I do feel that the Earth is a hologram, really, when you look at it from the highest level. This is a construct that we're creating in our mind. Even the concept of the planets is a construct that we're creating based on the laws of creation and physics of this timeline. I think when you go into other dimensional planes, what we see as Earth, it changes. It's not like this galaxy anymore. It's something completely different. So perhaps the way I like to look at it is more like, it's almost like a field. It's a field of creation. And each one of these spiral movements, including the galaxies, including the multiverse, is moving in a spiral motion. As it moves through the different layers, within this construct that we're in right now, we're moving through 13 rings of this spiral, which is like DNA. It's like a DNA coil itself. And when it reaches to the 13th, it then goes into 21, then it goes into the next. And it's measured by how the Fibonacci sequence, how it has those different sections that it's fractalized in. We are also following that. I think that the multiverse follows that expression. And then from that perspective, seeing things as planets doesn't exist anymore, because you're looking at it from different perspectives, different dimensional planes.
the Fibonacci sequence is, you know, I was also speaking to Billy. Man, I love the synchronicities. Always, you know, showing that we're on the right conversation. But we were talking about that as well, and talking about how that is present in every petroglyph site I've seen in the United States. It's
Wow.
present in every single one of them. It's present in Chaco Canyon, and it really seems, you know, that that is one thing that the ancients, you know, the past civilizations connecting to star beings and everything, it seems like, you know, this is a knowing that is passed down automatically, and it's something that is very profound. It's you know, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be an interesting next you know, spring and summer, uncovering all these mysteries.
Yeah.
We're starting. Billy's talking about doing a project with the petroglyphs. I'm talking about being a part of it. I can't wait to start dissecting all
Nice.
this and bringing all this out into the light. You know, it's right in our backyard. You know, it's
So exciting.
a lot of people, you know, you're within 8 hours of some of the greatest mysteries and some of the greatest,
Yeah.
you know, things that will just blow your mind. And I know that we're going to be affecting some dreams tonight, the chat with all this talk. I know that people are
Nice.
going to be traveling tonight. Um, yeah, it's just amazing. Have you been to any petroglyph sites around the United States? Is that something you're into, or?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been to the ones in Arizona and then along the canyons around there, and I've been where else? Well, Mexico as well. You know, through the ruins here in South America. There's a lot, and it's not even talked about. I mean, phenomenal petroglyphs. You just mind blowing. That are dating back even older. I was able to reference that with I forget his name now, but he's the one that studied like all these ancient technologies. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. Um, but anyway, yes, I've seen several of them. The ones in South America to me were actually really, really amazing, just as amazing as the ones in the U.S.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some ones in Blythe that a lot of people don't know about. They're very
Oh.
large.
Mhm.
I posted some in Twitter. If you're in the chat room, go check out my Twitter. By the way, follow me over at Twitter at Drew Banky. And yeah, follow my guest and friend here too over at her Twitter. What's your Twitter handle, Geraldine?
Oh, Twitter is Intro Alchemy, but I don't spend a lot of time there. You could probably find me on YouTube a lot better at Geraldine Orozco. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, this man, I forgot even what I was saying. Anyway, no worries.
Your petroglyphs. You were talking about the
Oh,
petroglyphs.
the
Talking
in
about,
Blythe, there
yeah.
are not petroglyphs, they're geoglyphs. So
Oh,
they're carved into the ground, and
wow.
they're one of them's over 100 feet. I think it's 140 feet from the head to the feet, and it's obviously, you know, they're carved into the the desert floor in Blythe, California. You can look it up if someone wants to throw that up. Maybe Kaz, you could throw that up for me in the chat room or on Twitter. Be great. Yeah, but people can go there, and it's very, there's over 30 different structures there, and they're definitely signaling to something in the sky. You know, there's one is a being, one it looks like maybe a cow or a buffalo, and then there's a spider. There's actually a star being with eyes and everything that's carved into the ground. But
Wow.
I can't wait to get into this project, man. There's so much mystery, like right here in our backyard. You know, it surprised me when I asked Billy. I was like, man, Billy, you've been all over the world. Like, go to Egypt all the time, but have you ever been to the petroglyphs? He's never been to petroglyphs. It amazes me.
Oh my
But
gosh, that's so great. Well, and I love that he seeing that the Fibonacci sequence is embedded in those. I mean, the Fibonacci sequence is something really important that I think should be part of our school curriculum, you know,
oh yeah,
because
God,
it's
yeah.
the key to the universe. It's the key to everything. It's the key to health. I mean, from the cell of your body to the leaf in your plant outside in your garden. We are abiding by certain instruction manual of creation, you know. So when you understand that, you understand many things about manifestation, about yourself, about the body. So I think it's a key.
telekinesis, all of it. That's one thing I'm starting to teach now. And there's
awesome.
more and more videos coming out. People starting to move smoke with their mind and things like that, or move objects inside, like put a glass jar over an object and move the object inside the glass jar.
Mhm.
This we're not learning anything. And I think this is what people really need to understand. We're not learning anything. We're remembering. We're
Remembering.
remembering.
Totally.
That's why it comes so easy. I mean,
Mhm.
especially like these downloads that we're talking about are not actually downloads. We're just remembering chunks of memory that's been encoded in us. And
Exactly.
that's where I'm at with all this. So what other projects have you worked on, and what's coming up for Geraldine?
Yes. Well, there are several. I have a new show coming up, an episode on unidentified. Was it unidentified or with Ben Hansen? He has this incredible show on what is it called? Discovery Plus. So please do check that out. It's going to be coming out pretty soon. It is a follow-up to Contact and Hybridization. It's amazing how these mainstream channels are really becoming quite interested in the topic. I've also been on a couple of the shows for Discovery Channel that you can check out that are very informative. And you can check out my IMDb for all of that, and also my website. Projects that I'm working on right now, really exciting. I'm finishing up a child's book on multidimensionality, which I think is super important. I have a lot of love and a lot of focus on supporting our next generation, trying to make this education and these practices available to children, so that they can, because these children are coming in super highly activated right now. They remember so much. This is the next wave of consciousness that's coming in. So we need to catch up to them. We need to support them and guide them through this process of awakening. And it's the same for us adults. So two things that I'm working on is creating conscious community, a place for us to begin to come and train and to practice and take months out of your life, come in, integrate fully into the process of awakening. So that when you go back to your work, you can lead that kind of life. You can embody that, and then training children. So these are the things that I'm working on. And yeah, if you want to get a DNA reprogramming or hypnotherapy with me, of course, that's available. Very profound healing work is available through DNA reprogramming.
Cool. And there's a website for Bay Area Meditation. Yeah,
Yeah.
bayareameditation.com. That's our website. So if you want to get any deeper into that. And what are the signs? Just finishing up this last few minutes, like what
Yeah.
of the show? What are some of the signs? How can people tell they're going through an awakening? Um, for me, for instance, waking up at certain hours of the night. Why are certain hours of the night? Why is number synchronicities? Why is all that connected? Like, what's it trying to tell us?
Yeah, basically, you can call them glitches in the matrix, I guess you can say, where you begin to become aware of something more than, everyday monotony. When you wake up from the hypnosis, the patterns of life are no longer going to be resonating anymore. Your relationships are going to fall apart, the way that you see the world, the way that you agree to things in the world, the activities that you want to take in your life, the emotions that you feel are going to be super heightened, and you're going to be highly aware. And people that are incredibly empathic have to be very careful in this process not to want to escape into drugs or something that will deviate them from feeling fully this process. And this is the hardest part. This is where people go through dark nights of the soul, because they come into massive amounts of awareness, and that awareness can sometimes be very difficult to process and to integrate. So need to have a lot of compassion. A must is to have a self-love routine. Educate yourself on what it means to love yourself, and to literally create practical daily practices to keep you connected and guiding and nurturing yourself through this process of awakening, because you need to be, and you are, your only support system. And the higher you go, the more lonely and isolated, seemingly, it's going to feel until you realize that you are one with everything. And that's kind of the maturity that we have to go through as souls in the physical as we become energy. We see ourselves as material, and then we see ourselves as energy, and that's where the sky becomes the limit, and where you start communicating with your surroundings. You're going to start seeing synchronicity patterns in numbers. You're going to start experiencing the magic that this life has to offer. Instant manifestation of things, resonating with people, places, and things that are in alignment with you. And the effort of survival will no longer need to be an embodiment of your everyday life. It's now congruent living with yourself as an existence. So these are some things that, I just throw out there for that.
What about diet? How's that affect?
Yeah.
How's that affect all this going on? Like, I think that's one of the first things that people need to get control of, because people don't realize that the addiction, anything that you put into your mouth can be an addiction. That's
Exactly.
the way I see it.
Yeah. Well, we have two brains, right? We have the brain up here, and then we have the brain in the biome. And surprisingly, the majority of us have a lot of parasites in our biome, and a lot of little entities and attachments in our multidimensional body that are craving things, that are distracting us and keeping us in these hypnosis patterns. There's a profound connection between your biome and your emotional and nervous system. So if you are trying to reach for sugars and carbs all the time, there's some unaddressed emotions that have to be dealt with. So that's really important, to sit with the emotions that come up. And as you do that work, try to come into a state of neutrality as much as possible. And from that state of neutrality, choose the food that you're eating mindfully in alignment with that neutrality, because that will help you slowly break away from the sugars and the carbs that are keeping you heavy. The vibration becomes very dense, into a little bit higher vibration diet, which is more liquid, juicing, vegetables, green. Remember that the colors that you're eating speak to the chakras that are becoming enhanced, the energetic fields. It's a frequency. So if you're eating a lot of browns and yellows, a lot of carby things, you're in a constant state of survival, usually in a state of fear and anger, those heavy emotions. You're eating a lot of green, you're activating your heart, lots of vibrant purple, rainbow. You have to eat the rainbow, So all of these things, remember, everything is frequency. Also, the intention of your mind that you put into your food. Fill your food with source, with the intention that what you're eating will be your medicine, that it will nourish the soul, the body. And that intention is actually the most important. Practice intuition from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. Do I reach for the apple? Do I reach for the water? Sometimes the coffee, or whatever it is. Just listen to your intuition. You'll be surprised how healthy you become when you do. So those are just some things that you can kind of think of.
What about sun meditation? Are you a subscriber to that?
Meditation?
No, sun meditation, like morning sun meditation.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The I am, and connecting to the sun.
Yes.
And
Absolutely. And I practice that myself in my life. First of all, you need to sleep early between the hours of 10 and 2, because this is where your body begins to recover, regenerate. The organs have a certain order for regeneration. If you sleep at 2 in the morning, you're skipping a whole bunch of regeneration for your organs. And then, you're constantly coming out of balance. So if you are vibrant, healthy, energetic, it's because you're restoring the life force in your body. So when you wake up in the morning and you do sun salutations, yoga, breathing, pranic, healing, breathing in your body, all of these things with the sun energy. And I teach Qigong. I'm a Qigong Master as well. So Qigong is super important. Learning how to work with life force, cultivating the management of energy in the body is incredibly important. So illness is not like our televisions are telling us that it's just inevitable. No, illness is is not the state that we are in naturally. We are healthy, we are vibrant. So we have to help promote that healing in the body. Also, sunset. It's really great to, put your palms up in the sun and absorb life force through the body. Try to spend time with nature, a tree, a plant, connect with that if you can't go out into nature, and start aligning yourself with that fluid movement of life force through your body. So there's many things that you can do. It's just so beautiful, and it's great to have so many tools at our disposal.
Amazing. Any last messages for the people? By the way, I got her link on Amazon.com. If you got Amazon Prime, you can watch this for free. You can go watch it right now, and it'll tell a little more in depth of Geraldine's story and other experiencers. She's not the only one in this film, but she's definitely in the film. So if you want to go check it out, that's the link is scrolling right there. Here is her website as well, bayareameditation.com. Go check her out if you had an experience and you're looking for answers. Go check her out and see. It's not going to hurt anything, just reaching out. Any last messages for the people, Geraldine? And by the way, thank you for coming on Eagle's Nest podcast. Thank you so much for helping me get my intro ready for all this, and taking up part of your day to help this endeavor of mine and helping my dream move forward. So I just want to say thank you again.
I love to support you, and the work that you're doing in your family is just amazing. Please do check out my events calendar. I have a lot of conferences and places that I'll be speaking at. So definitely check that out. I go deep into the topic of holographic DNA and what that looks like when it comes to contact. So it was an honor to be here. And if you want to work with me, you can reach me at GeraldineOrozco.com as well. And if you're a contactee that is looking to join my support group and the programs that we have, you can join hybridmother.com. So Drew, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor, and always here to support your work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And stick around. Let me close this out, and we'll chat right after the show. Okay, everybody, that was Geraldine, and thank you for everybody in the chat room. Kaz, Pat, Alberto, Paradigm Shift, Northern California, my queen, my love of my life, Ella Banky, my wife in the chat room as well. Thank you for supporting. If I missed anybody in the chat room, I'm scrolling through right now to see if I missed anybody. Pono 8888, thanks for being in the chat room. Gil, thanks for being in the chat room. Kaz, as always, thanks for supporting us. Pat, the elf in the chat room, thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks. Shout out to Race Hobbs, Margie K. And yeah, you are listening to the Eagle's Nest podcast. We are streaming live right now from Southern Colorado at Sacred Journeys Within Plant Medicine Church. We are in the San Luis Valley, and we're streaming again through KUNX digital broadcasting to Van Buren, Arkansas, and in Missouri. I can't remember our game station identification. Can't remember. I'm gonna iron this out, people. It'll be better next time. It's gonna be better each time, people. So just stick with me. If you haven't liked the Eagle's Nest podcast, give us a like, share, subscribe. Let everybody know that we got some great content. Great content in the past. Past episodes, we got Laura Eisenhower. We got Navy SEAL that healed. Another episode, we have Navy SEAL Joel Lambert. He healed with iboga and ayahuasca. He shares his story. We just had Billy Carson on a few days ago, and we got Brett Lauder coming up, author, Bigfoot enthusiast, explorer. He's gonna be sharing his findings. That's gonna be a great conversation. Jess Rogie from In the Simulation. Dave Scott coming up on the 29th of May from Spaced Out Radio. First Sunday in June, it'll be Jason Quitt. Followed next Sunday, it'll be Kevin Day. He is, if you don't know who Kevin Day is, everybody, I'm just gonna get into Kevin Day a little bit. He was on the USS Princeton. He's a radar operator that was on duty during the incident of the Nimitz UFO Tic Tac incident from 2005. It broke, I think it broke in Newsweek and major news outlets back in 2017 when it first broke. It's still, you can still find it. You can look it up on YouTube right now. You can see the video of the strike force, the ships off the Nimitz encountering the Tic Tac craft. But getting back to Kevin Day, he is the radar operator that was on the Princeton that was on duty when the incident with the Nimitz happened. So he's going to be speaking on June 12th. And June 19th is my dear friend Ruben Langdon. I've known him. I met him back in 2019 at Contact in the Desert. He is several things. If you've seen the Avatar movie, he is the stunt double for Jake in Avatar. He is the creator and host of Interviews with Extra Dimensionals. He turned his life work. One of his missions in life is to interview people with that can channel these higher beings. So he's I believe he's on his third or fourth season with Interviews with Extra Dimensionals. I believe it's on Gaia now. And yeah, that's just some mind-blowing stuff. You can get into him, but he's going to be with us on June 19th. And coming up in July 10th, we're going to be live. Eagle's Nest podcast, myself, host Drew Banky, is going to be filming live from the Stardust Festival. That's going to be in Golden, Colorado. Again, that's July 10th in Golden, Colorado. I will be speaking there at 11 a.m. So if you want to come see me speak in person, if you got any questions that you want to ask in person, head on out there to Golden, Colorado, Stardust Fest, July 10th. And that night we're going to be filming, because it happens to be on a Sunday. So we're going to be live. And we're going to be, I don't even know who we're going to be interviewing then. We may just have a bunch of people on that night, but more news to come on that. Again, July 10th, live from Stardust Fest in Golden, Colorado. Again, want to thank my guest, Geraldine, my guest and friend, such a beautiful soul. And you have been listening to the Eagle's Nest podcast. And this is being streamed on KUNX Digital Broadcasting Networks. And join us next Sunday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We start at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Yeah, we're 2 hours of getting into it every week, every Sunday, closing out your weekend, getting ready to start your week with a big fat dose of conscious evolution and how all these experiences tie into it. I'm so excited, everybody, for the guest lineup I have coming, for where this place is going. And no, Kaz, I don't have open lines yet. I will figure that out soon as we get going. I'm trying to juggle all this other stuff. But yeah, Kaz, thanks for always supporting me. Really, you're awesome. Again, happy Mother's Day to my wife, all the mothers out there. If you haven't talked to your mom yet, or called her or gave her a hug or sent her some flowers, do so now, please. Love everybody. And I am Drew Banky. This is Eagle's Nest Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
You are listening to Eagle's Nest Podcast with Drew Banky. Shocking accounts of UFOs, NDEs, Bigfoot, and angels are the vibe, but no telling where the conversation goes. The aim is we all get one step closer to the truth of our existence with each episode.
You are listening to KUNX Digital Broadcasting, Kansas City, Missouri, and Van Buren, Arkansas.